Welcome to the Tech Matchmaker, the show where contact center challenges meet their perfect tech match. I'm your host, Gina Gibson, and in just 15 minutes, we serve up the smartest, coolest innovations shaking up the contact center industry. Whether you're searching for your next solution or just love staying ahead of the curve, we've got the insights to keep you in the know. Let's dive in and discover what's next. I promise you, it's going to be fun. Hello, everybody. Today we are chatting with Travis Currier, who is the VP of Business Development from TheCallGurus, about BPOs. Travis, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be
So,
here.
Travis, let's start with the basics. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And one thing I always like to ask people is tell us something that we won't find on LinkedIn, and you can't use the fact that you have like a 6 handicap as that.
Well, that's like an 8.5, but okay. Yeah, my name is Travis Currier. I live in Phoenix, Arizona here, so not too far from Gina. I work at the Call Gurus doing business development. I have a wife and two boys that are age 7 and 4. We play a lot of sports. We're outside a lot, even in the crazy summer heat here in Phoenix. But yeah, I don't post a whole lot about pictures or anything like that on LinkedIn. I save that for, either other social medias or not at all. But yeah, outside of LinkedIn, that's my main life for sure.
Excellent. And do you want to give us, Travis, the Call Gurus elevator pitch? What are
Yeah,
you?
of
What is a
course.
BPO? And yeah.
Yeah, we are an outsourced BPO, which is basically any company who needs help with over the phone agents, can use our services as opposed to doing it internally themselves. So they're outsourcing that side of the business. And at the Call Gurus, we are predominantly in Mexico with our agents. So we have a couple different sites, and our main site is in Guadalajara, Mexico. We pride ourselves on having very accent neutral agents, and even more importantly, agents who understand the culture here in the U.S. So the vast majority, over 90% of our agents grew up in the U.S. For for a specific time or another, and a lot of them, made all their way through high school here. And so because of that, they're able to just understand how we do things in the US, certain things we say on the phone that, goes over the head of some agents that they can, understand and that they can, relate to, and, just sound more casual, make a joke here and there when needed, talk about the weather in certain places, just to kind of make somebody on the other line a little bit more comfortable, and, allow them to, open up, whether it's just a quick qualifying call or, sometimes we do hour-long sales calls. So that's who we are at the Call Gurus.
Perfect. And what would you say, Travis? There's a lot of BPOs out in the space. What would you say that sets you guys apart from your competitors in the
Yeah, there's a couple things. I was just on a call with our leadership team, kind of talking all about these things, and how to, represent that to who we're talking to. The biggest thing, number one, is the agents. Like, because if you could have the greatest company in the world, but if the agents, aren't great on the phones, then it doesn't matter. So the agents are definitely the start. We, again, like I said, they're very accent neutral. They're gonna know the culture of the US, and no matter what the vertical we're calling on, they're going to be able to relate to people just a little bit more. And of course, being in Mexico, it's going to be a little bit more inexpensive as opposed to the US. Generically, the work ethic's a little bit stronger in Mexico, compared to the US, especially when it comes to call center agents. But they're obviously going to be much more expensive than, if you're going far offshore where, most of those agents don't know as much about the US culture. So our biggest thing is we're going to be able to produce, just a little bit higher than anyone offshore, and get as close as possible to know US production as well. So yeah.
Excellent. And you mentioned before, some of the fields that you're in or customers that you have, but when or why should people consider outsourcing to a BPO? Like, what's the ideal scenario?
Yeah, I would say, one thing we say to anybody on a call is when they have their own company, they are really good at something. That something is probably not running a call center. If they need a call center for, whether it's 2 people or 100 people, that becomes a whole business of its own. And, there's some people who are in the insurance space, let's say, and they're really good at the marketing and the media and generating leads within insurance and finding buyers and have great relationship with buyers, but they don't want to run a call center. and some of them maybe think that they do, but if they jump into it on their own, they usually realize pretty quickly that this should be something to be outsourced. So any size of a call center kind of doesn't matter. It's just such a big ordeal to take on basically a new business, and not even just a department. It's almost a whole new business. And of course, anytime you're dealing with humans, it's not like a software where you're just kind of flicking a button and something turns on. It is humans, and you're dealing with different things that come up, and bathroom breaks, and how the agents relate to each other, and sometimes it's not always a perfect harmony. So dealing with all the HR things that come up. So everything we've seen in the past, it is much better and more efficient to outsource it rather than to start up your own basically additional company as a call center.
And just adding on to that, Travis, what do you think the most important value a BPO can offer and deliver for their clients?
Yeah, for us, the biggest thing we say at the beginning of any relationship is we want to be an extension of your company. We want, you to treat our agents like they work at your company. They just happen to be a part of the Call Gurus and probably in Guadalajara, Mexico. But we have a lot of our companies who look at us as something that drives profit rather than is just an additional cost. There's some, very low level customer service type campaigns that we actually turn away because we know that the company that we're working for just sees it as a cost item at the end of the day. And, every quarter they're going to try to reduce costs, which means they're going to take that campaign away eventually. So we actually do turn away some of those very low level customer service because it's just not worth it. And we don't really become any value to them. We are just a cost item. And so we want to do anything that can, provide profit and bring value. And, one good example of that, we have multiple different clients that send like swag down to our agents in Mexico, where they will be wearing their hats, they're wearing their shirts, they have a big banner behind them sometimes that has the company name that they essentially work for. And so that, has a lot of buy-in for those agents where they're able to, feel like they work for these companies that are in the US that are making great money and have great margins and all that. But they're, sitting in a very comfortable, nice call center in Guadalajara, Mexico. And they feel that buy-in every day they come to work.
I love that. So in the BPO space, what is one of the biggest myths or misconceptions that people have about BPOs that you would like?
Yeah, I think the one thing we hear all the time is, they just kind of put every BPO in like the offshore corner. Like every BPO is, far offshore and they don't understand, how we work here. They're just trying to get to the bottom line. And we obviously, kind of as I've said, like everything we do is the opposite of that. We want it to be agents who understand what's going on, understand the importance of whatever they're selling, whether it's, a new roof on your house or health insurance. It's a very big deal, obviously, in the US and everywhere. But, just the little details about each vertical that can go a long way that, most people just assume it's somebody that's very far offshore and they have no idea what I'm talking about. But we definitely are that opposite, where we totally understand where, consumers are coming from, no matter what the vertical, and how important some of these things are to, to their everyday life.
And to make sure that happens, do you guys invest a lot in training, Travis? Is that kind of part of your culture as far as making sure that everybody is aware?
For sure. Yeah. There's a couple different things we do in the training side, and our I shouldn't say new anymore because he's been in that position a couple of years, but our now training manager actually started as a supervisor. So he was on the phones, then he was promoted to supervisor, and they kind of identified him as a great way to train agents because he was doing it, through QA and up training on certain campaigns. And, we changed him into the training role where he's identifying agents right when they get where when they apply, he identifies them as, what type of campaign that they should be best for. And, he has kind of like a holding a campaign that we start them in for the first at least week or two. And that way we can, kind of look at everything from attendance to production of what these agents are going to be able to produce, long term for a new client. And that definitely goes a long way and helps with retention and attrition and everything that comes with training.
Fantastic. Do you want to share a success story of one of your clients with us, Travis, as far as what the metrics were and what you guys did for them? And
Yeah, for sure. I guess I mean, there's a bunch of different kind of examples we could go with, but there's a very large debt relief company in the U.S. I believe they're actually the largest in the U.S. And we kind of had a mutual client together about 3.5 years ago now. and they kind of reached out to us and said, hey, you guys have something good going on. We can see from the production of this mutual client, where they were kind of the back end for the front end that we were working with. And they said, maybe we should look into possibly working together. Long story short, they ended up flying down to Guadalajara with some of their top leadership. They saw our site, they saw the agents. They were, they loved that they could just kind of pull anybody aside that they wanted to and ask them some questions, ask them, their work environment and how they started at the Call Gurus, what the Call Gurus means, how they're treated, of course, and different things that kind of are just a culture piece, not just, production and all that. They wanted to look at servers and all the tech side too, to make sure we were kind of up to snuff and, you know, internet and all that fun stuff. So now, kind of fast forward a few years now, they actually kind of jumped in as a partner of ours, where they would kind of send front ends our way, and we would be able to not only do, quick front end calls for somebody who's in the debt relief, looking for some kind of relief from their debt, usually credit card debt, but they also were able to kind of identify agents that could do the full enrollment process, which is, for anybody who knows the debt relief space, that's about a 45-minute to an hour long call. You really have to go over, a ton of different things with the consumer, and then also, show empathy, because this, you're talking to somebody who might be 30, 35, $40,000 in credit card debt, how they got there, and then also, their why of why they want to get out of it. So because of that, they were able to train our agents, on site, for actually a few months. And then, now it's kind of been train the trainer at the beginning, and now our training team has taken over that. But now we have, well over 100 agents in the debt vertical who, some are doing the fronting, some are doing retention, and a lot are doing actually the full enrollment process, which, we have some agents that can do about $1 million a month in debt enrollment. And that is, something that a lot of debt companies in the US are looking for, from US agents. And so the success story is that now we have a great partner in that company, but also we now have agents that are able to, produce similar, if not the same, as a US rep, obviously being much more cheap, a little less expensive. And we're able to do it, for multiple different companies. And so it's grown our company, it's grown these front ends, and it's really helped, this back end as well. So it's kind of been a win-win all around.
That's fantastic. And so definitely then debt relief and credit. What are some of the other verticals that you guys have seen a lot of success in?
Yeah, we definitely kind of our niche space is the lead generation space, which, is a big but also kind of a small industry depending on how you look at it. But we have basically been in pretty much any vertical in the lead gen space, as well as some outside. So a lot of it is health insurance, things like ACA and Medicare calls and final expense, where we're doing basically qualifying people as far as possible in order to, try to make it a laydown for the license agent, where we're, collecting all the information needed to then transfer it to a licensed agent who can then just do their job to, enroll this person into whatever type of insurance it is. We also do, kind of home services, where we've done some solar in the past, but a lot of roofing now, as well as, like bathroom remodel and siding and gutters and all those different things that come with home services. So yeah, pretty much any of those. And then, a lot of what we do is not like a specific industry, but it's just kind of sales related, where we will sell things like, there's senior chairs that help seniors, get up and down a little bit easier than your typical chair. And we are able to sell that over the phone. That, and, there's a couple of different things. One thing we do is an aesthetics company, where we're actually selling plastic surgery over the phone, because that's a massive industry. And so it's not, it's kind of specific to a couple different clients, but anything that's a little bit high level sales is something that we would love to put our hat in and, show how great our agents can sell over the phone. And, no matter what kind of vertical or industry it is, we've shown in the past that we can produce and make it, as efficient as possible for the companies.
Wow. I never would have imagined plastic surgery being sold over the phone. That's quite a unique one.
Yeah, it is for sure. And there was a couple extra security measures we had to do with those agents have to be on site. They have to be, in their own floor. It's not like you can just walk by those computers either, because there's some very sensitive information there. But the nice thing is, they're able to use our agents to do, complete a full sale. And, those are a lot of, it's women sending pictures in of where they're looking to improve, their
Yeah.
bodies,
Wow.
but they're talking to other women who, can understand where they're coming from. I totally see what, they can see, exactly what they're talking about. And again, relate to them, where it's able to be a little bit on their level and, kind of you go girl type things. And
Yeah,
I started with that and very quickly handed that off to the people who are much more qualified than me in that section.
excellent. Where do you see the biggest opportunities in the, next year or two for BPOs?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, I think we're like 15 minutes in. We haven't even said the letters AI yet, so that's
Yeah.
a good thing for us. I guess that's probably one of the longest podcasts so far. But all I have to say, AI of course is implemented in every good call center now. And ours we definitely use on the training process, on the agent selection, on the QA side. The one thing that we are making a big effort, have been for at least a couple of years now, to not, like I said earlier, not do those low level, just simple campaigns where it's just a cost that's being looked at, because those are all going to get replaced by AI. AI agents are becoming better and better, and we are very open and see that, and we get pitched on AI agents all the time. But the nice thing is the very vast majority of the campaigns we do are, they're not going to be able to be replaced by AI at least anytime soon. I know AI is getting better and better, so it might be able to sell one day, but as of now, it's not doing any sales related calls. So I'm sure that's going to be a big challenge for a bunch of different BPOs. We've seen that even in the surrounding areas of where our centers are in Mexico, where there's other centers that are shutting down because they were just like I said, they were just a cost, an item,
Yeah.
on the sheet on P&L. It's just a cost, and now if you can replace that with an AI for way less than half the price, then you're going to do it, which, makes sense for the company. So our biggest thing is, acknowledging that AI is coming for certain jobs and making sure that we're identifying the right, clients and campaigns where, we're here to do things that humans need to do and, do them as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to any of our listeners, Travis, that are maybe considering outsourcing for the first time? Is there anything that they should be aware of when they're talking to different BPOs, or what would you say you would tell them the top two or three things to consider would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest, well, there's a couple things, but the one big thing is, getting some call recordings and seeing what other clients the BPOs have. There's we see BPOs all the time where we're never really sure, what they do or what their niche is, and they're shocked sometimes at how open we are. Like, we'll tell you pretty much everything. Like, it's you're gonna have to prove it eventually, of course. And then, a huge part of our company, that I didn't mention earlier, is our tech side. We have a CTO who's been in the space for, well over a decade now, and he has an amazing team of developers underneath him, of dialer engineers. And that's such an important part of any campaign is, understanding the technology that's being used and, using the most efficient technology out there. And, also, from there being able to track everything. You want the best reporting possible. And, we choose certain dialers and certain tracking platforms that are going to show the best reporting, of every single agent, every single hour of every single day, and look at all the QA side of things and what KPIs are being hit or aren't being hit. And of course, recordings and all that. You definitely want to make sure the technology piece is there. And we were just talking about it this morning on an internal call, but we've had multiple clients who have said, their favorite individual at the Call Gurus is one of our tech guys. And, not even just our CTO, but one of the guys on his team who, is in the weeds every day, in the group chats and answering questions, but also giving suggestions like, hey, if you do this, this, and this, there's this chance that you're going to be a little bit more efficient and produce a little bit more. So the tech piece is huge. And our tech team, can help a ton of different clients and has helped. And we do a little, different approach where some of our clients are on technology that we provide and kind of control, and some of them are on their own technology where they already kind of have that piece set, which is fine. We can just also be, kind of a sounding board. Like, hey, we have this dialer and this tracking platform, but can you give a suggestion here? Because we've kind of seen it all from all the different types of campaigns we've been in, so we can always, be an additional help on the tech side there.
And I think it's great too. So it's you can bring your own tech or use your tech in that case, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the ones, the clients that we onboard who, like their own technology and want to use their own technology, they still ask us all the time, like, what have you seen in the past that, maybe we're not doing? And, we're not going to, of course, break any NDAs or anything like that, but we will say generically, in this vertical or in this space, we've seen that, if you tweak here and here and here, you can actually improve, a little production, or you can increase that contact rate, or whatever the case may be. That again, we're the nice thing is we're all on the same team. Like, we want them to be successful, so that at the end of the day they're just gonna increase our size, add some agents from us. So the nice thing is we're coming at it from all being on the same team, and when one side wins, both sides win. So that definitely helps.
Absolutely. Perfect. And so just to wrap things up, Travis, I've always been a fan of James Lipton. And so we're going to do a few rapid fire to close it out.
Perfect.
What
Okay,
is
let's
your
do it.
favorite word?
My favorite word?
Yeah.
I would say let's go with family. I think anytime somebody says family, it's coming from a heartfelt place.
Absolutely. What is your least favorite word?
I would say, as far as recent goes, maybe synergy. There's so many, I get so many LinkedIn messages that say, let's look and see if we have any synergies between us. So as of late, that's probably been my least favorite word.
It's so funny. I'm waiting for somebody to say AI.
Yeah, that's true. That might be up there. I know. That's a good point.
And what excites you the most?
I think new challenges that can lead to something awesome. Like, one thing we talk about all the time is we're onboarding. We try, of course, to onboard the right clients who can scale. And so when I'm able to bring a new client to the team and say, if this goes well, X can happen. That's pretty exciting. For me, of course, but also for our team internally, where it's like, hey, this new client that we just got introduced to could become our biggest client. That's always very exciting.
Love it. And Travis, if somebody wants more information or to carry on the conversation about BPOs and the gurus, who should they call?
I would say they can contact me directly for sure. I'm pretty easy to chat with on LinkedIn, or on my email, or just reach out to me any way you have it. And then, of course, with you, Gina, with everything that you guys have going on, Gina's been a great resource for us, and you can contact her in order to get a hold of us too. And she's been great to kind of recommend different things for us, both on the tech side and also for some new clients as well. So either one of us on here, I think, would be a great start.
Excellent. Travis, thank you so much for your time today and for joining us. It was great learning more about Call Gurus, and always fun to learn more stuff about BPOs. So thank you
Of
so much for
course.
coming.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with us on the Tech Matchmaker. I hope today's spotlight sparks some fresh ideas and real solutions for your contact center. Want to dive deeper into the tech we featured? Hit up the show notes for all the links and extras, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if there's a challenge you want us to tackle, don't be shy, reach out. I'll catch you soon with more innovation, more use cases, and more ways to keep your business moving forward. Stay curious, stay bold, and keep exploring what's next.